A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a pivotal ruling, a federal judge has determined that disputed ballots in the unresolved 2024 race for a North Carolina Supreme Court seat must remain in the final count. This decision, made by U.S. District Judge Richard Myers late Monday, if upheld, would secure an electoral victory for Democratic incumbent Allison Riggs. Judge Myers aligned with Riggs and others who argued that it would contravene the U.S. Constitution to implement recent state appeals court decisions aimed at removing potentially thousands of ballots deemed ineligible. In his ruling, Myers emphasized that votes cannot be discarded 6 months post-Election Day without infringing on the due process and equal protection rights of the affected voters. He also mandated that the State Board of Elections certify the election results, which after 2 recounts, indicated Riggs won by a narrow margin of just 734 votes over Republican challenger Jefferson Griffin. However, the judge has postponed his ruling for 7 days, allowing Griffin the opportunity to appeal to the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The board was instructed not to act on the North Carolina Court of Appeals and Supreme Court's orders, but instead to certify the results based on the final tally after the canvassing period. This ruling comes in the context of a highly contentious election, with over 5.5 million ballots cast, making it the last undecided race from November's general election. Griffin, a state court of appeals judge himself, had filed formal protest following the election, seeking to remove ballots he claimed were unlawfully cast in hopes of overturning the outcome in his favor. Riggs, celebrating her judicial victory, stated, "Today, we won. I'm proud to continue upholding the Constitution and the rule of law as North Carolina Supreme Court Justice." On the other hand, Griffin's legal team is currently assessing the implications of Myers' order and considering their next steps. Griffin had aimed for Myers to uphold the state court's decisions, which allowed voters with ineligible ballots to provide identifying information within 30 days to keep their votes counted. Riggs, along with the state Democratic Party and some voters affected, accused Griffin of attempting to retroactively alter the election results by excluding valid ballots cast under the rules established last fall. Judge Myers criticized Griffin's post-election protests, which had been dismissed by the State Board of Elections, as attempts to retroactively change voting laws that would unfairly disenfranchise targeted voters. Notably, Griffin's challenges regarding photo ID requirements were limited to 6 Democratic-leaning counties. In his 68-page order, Myers articulated, "You establish the rules before the game. You don't change them after the game is done." He warned that allowing such changes post-election could lead to confusion and undermine public trust in the electoral process and judicial system. Concerns about Griffin's actions have been echoed by Democrats and voting rights advocates, who view them as an assault on democracy that could set a precedent for the GOP to challenge election outcomes in other states. Democratic National Committee Chair Ken Martin remarked that Monday's order should put a definitive end to Republican efforts to overturn legitimate election results. The North Carolina Republican Party has maintained that Griffin's actions are focused on ensuring that only legal votes are counted. The ballots in question fall into 2 categories. One concerning military or overseas voters who failed to provide necessary photo identification, and the other involving overseas voters who have never resided in the U.S. but were allowed to vote under state law. Myers noted that while some individuals may have been incorrectly listed as eligible voters, the lack of a process to contest their ineligibility poses an unconstitutional burden on the right to vote. Griffin's protests initially targeted over 65,000 ballots, but subsequent state court rulings reduced this number to between 1,675 and 7,000. Riggs, as one of 2 Democrats on the 7-member state Supreme Court, stands to enhance her party's chances of regaining a majority on the court in the coming years. Both Griffin and Riggs have recused themselves from their respective courts' deliberations regarding this election. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.